Right now, something like 57% of millennials are actively trying to buy tech that someone else has already gotten rid of.
Yeah, and honestly, if you look at U.S. adults as a whole, it's nearly half.
Yeah.
Half of everyone is doing the exact same thing.
Which is wild. But, in a secondary market that's just completely flooded with degraded batteries and obsolete operating systems, and let's be real, carefully disguised scam listings, how do you know if you're actually scoring the deal of the decade?
Right, or if you're just paying a premium for someone else's e-waste.
Exactly.
It is a massive behavioral shift we're watching unfold in real time. We're seeing data, like this recent polling from CNET, that totally confirms consumers are just abandoning the traditional retail model.
Like just walking into a store and buying the newest gadget off the shelf.
Yeah, they aren't doing that anymore. And part of it is definitely driven by this active desire to reduce the global mountain of e-waste, which is great. But the primary catalyst right now is purely economic. I mean, the global supply chain has been chaotic, computer memory, and chip shortages are still rippling through the manufacturing process.
And the retail price of new tech has just skyrocketed.
Right. Consumers are being squeezed hard, and they are hunting for a backdoor to affordability.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. Today, we are mapping out that backdoor for you.
Yes, we are.
We want to figure out how you can navigate this rapidly expanding world of secondhand tech so you can shortcut your way to a great deal without getting scammed.
Because it's a minefield out there.
It really is. So we're pulling insights from a really comprehensive guide on the industry. It features data, real-world buyer anecdotes, and this great breakdown of the market from Stephen Athwal.
Yeah, Athwal runs a major UK-based refurbished tech retailer called the Big Phone Store.
Right. So we have some heavy-hitting expertise here. And I guess to kick things off, we all know the motto, reduce, reuse, recycle. But when we're talking about expensive gadgets, why does buying older tech still feel like stepping into the Wild West?
Well, to navigate this space successfully, you first have to understand how risk is allocated.
Okay, risk.
Yeah. When you buy a brand new device, you're essentially paying for certainty. You're paying for the peace of mind that if the logic board fries on day 2, the multi-billion-dollar manufacturer will absorb that cost and replace it.
Right, you have that corporate safety bubble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the moment you step into the secondhand market, that bubble pops. You take on a portion of that risk yourself.
Which is scary.
It is. But the most common mistake buyers make is misunderstanding just how much risk they're actually assuming. And that's primarily because they conflate two completely different operational models.
You mean used tech versus refurbished tech?
Yes. People use those terms interchangeably all the time, and they absolutely shouldn't.
So let's draw a hard line between those two because retailers blur them constantly. If I'm looking at a listing for a quote-unquote used laptop, what am I actually looking at in terms of risk?
You're looking at asymmetric information. A used item is generally being sold by an independent individual, and it is sold strictly as is. Meaning there is zero guarantee that any diagnostic checks were performed.
Wow.
No components were replaced. There are no warranties. The device is changing hands in the exact physical and digital state it was in when the previous owner decided they didn't want it anymore.
So the risk is incredibly high.
Extremely high. You have no way of knowing how that device was treated, which is exactly why the price point on the used market drops so drastically.
Okay, contrast that with refurbished, which, I mean, that implies a deliberate intervention, right?
It does.
But I want to push back on the value proposition here for a second. The data shows that buying certified refurbished gear from a manufacturer like Apple, for example, generally only offers about a 15% discount off the brand new price.
Right.
If I'm only saving 15%, why would I take any risk at all by buying secondhand? That math just feels incredibly skewed to me.
I get that. It feels skewed if you view refurbished simply as a cleaned-up used phone. But you have to look at what that 15% margin is actually funding.
Okay, what's it funding?
Refurbished tech is handled by established companies. These devices are run through heavy diagnostic testing software.
So they actually check the internals?
Yes. The hardware is inspected, failing components are removed and replaced, and most importantly, the device is graded to a specific standard to resemble a new product.
Okay.
So you aren't just buying the physical phone. You're paying a premium to shift the risk away from yourself and back onto an institutional seller.
Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy. Buying used is like assuming all the risk. You're handing cash to a guy in his driveway for his old car.
Exactly.
And if the transmission drops 3 miles down the road, you are totally out of luck.
You're calling a tow truck on your own dime.
Right. Whereas buying refurbished is going to a certified pre-owned dealership. You pay a higher price than you would to the driveway guy, but you're paying for the mechanics who went under the hood, changed the oil, and gave you a legally binding guarantee that the engine won't explode on the highway.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. What's fascinating here is how the source material really highlights this. Both fall under secondhand, but the origin of the seller completely dictates the level of risk you assume.
Makes total sense.
And understanding that risk is crucial because of what's happening inside the hardware itself. That 15% discount is tied directly to the lifespan of the device.
Right, because modern tech is not built to be an heirloom.
No, it is not. Every piece of modern technology possesses multiple hidden, ticking clocks that start counting down the second it leaves the assembly line.
Let's talk about those clocks, because the moment you start using a device, you trigger hardware degradation.
Yep.
We all know screens accumulate micro scratches and charging ports fill up with lint, but the real ticking clock is chemical, isn't it?
It is. The primary ticking clock is the lithium-ion battery. Every single time you charge and discharge a modern device, the internal chemistry of the battery fundamentally alters.
Degrades.
Exactly. Lithium ions become trapped, the battery's capacity to hold a charge physically shrinks, and this is crazy, the processor may even throttle its own speed to prevent sudden shutdowns.
Wait, so the phone intentionally slows itself down?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you buy a used phone that is 3 years old, you're inheriting a severely degraded chemical component. You are absorbing every single charge cycle the previous owner put that device through.
Which is where the refurbishment process actively intervenes.
Exactly.
A legitimate refurbisher is going to open that casing, clean out the particulate matter suffocating the thermal vents, and literally rip out that degraded battery to install a fresh one.
They're physically winding back the hardware clock.
That's a great way to put it, winding back the clock.
They are. But this brings us to Stephen Athwal's golden rule for navigating this market.
Okay, what is it?
The quality of a refurbished device relies entirely on the specific company doing the refurbishing.
Because refurbished isn't a regulated term, is it?
Not universally. It's not a legally protected standard. It doesn't magically guarantee a fresh battery.
So, I mean, anyone with a microfiber cloth and a bottle of screen cleaner could technically list a laptop as refurbished?
Technically, yes, which means your job as a buyer is to interrogate the seller's process.
How do you do that?
Athwal advises that you need to ask if the testing is done in-house or outsourced to a third party. You need to read their specific grading standards.
Like, what does grade A actually mean?
Exactly. Does their grade A mean the battery is at 100% health, or just that the phone successfully powers on?
Huge difference.
Massive difference. You have to investigate the operational standards of the refurbisher before you even look at the device itself.
But let's assume you do all of that perfectly. You find an incredible refurbisher with strict in-house testing. They install a brand new battery, replace the charging port, polish the screen.
A perfect physical restoration.
Right. The hardware is flawless. There is still a second ticking clock that can instantly kill the device, and the refurbisher has absolutely zero control over it.
Yes. You're talking about the ultimate killer.
Software obsolescence.
Yes. We tend to focus entirely on the physical object in our hands, but the hardware is completely useless without the operating system driving it.
Right.
Eventually, manufacturers decide to stop sending software updates to older models. And in an ecosystem that relies entirely on constant internet connectivity, losing software support is a death sentence.
I want to make sure the mechanics of this are clear. Because it's wild. It's like owning a perfectly maintained, pristine luxury car, but the manufacturer decides to permanently change the shape of the gas nozzles at every single gas station.
That's a fantastic analogy.
The car's engine is flawless, the leather is perfect, but
Yeah.
you literally cannot put fuel into it anymore.
That is the exact mechanism of obsolescence. You could have a refurbished smartphone from 6 years ago that functions perfectly on a mechanical level.
But once the manufacturer cuts off support?
That phone stops receiving security patches. Modern applications will refuse to install because they require the newer operating system architecture.
It won't even connect to the web properly, right?
Exactly. It won't be able to connect securely to modern web protocols. So, despite the hardware being fully functional, the device ceases to operate as a modern tool.
That is an incredibly frustrating reality for anyone trying to reduce e-waste. I mean, you buy perfectly restored hardware, but A software kill switch forces it into a landfill anyway.
It's terrible.
It means that when you're shopping, you have to calculate how much runway the manufacturer is still giving that specific model before the software updates stop.
It fundamentally alters the math of your purchase. A cheaper, older, refurbished model might look like a great deal today, but if it hits software obsolescence in 6 months...
Your cost per use is actually terrible.
Exactly.
And beyond software death, we really have to look at the unpredictability of physical failure. Because even if you buy a relatively new model, secondhand tech carries battle scars.
Oh, absolutely. The material we're looking at highlights this massive variance in physical wear and tear. There are two very different buyer anecdotes in the research that illustrate this perfectly.
Okay, I have to bring up the first anecdote because it is wild. The PlayStation 4.
Yes, the PlayStation 4 from eBay. That is a perfect example of what we're talking about.
I mean, this guy bought a console and it arrived with a literal cigarette burn melted deep into the plastic casing.
Which is just visually a disaster.
Right, like heavily neglected. Who burns a cigarette on their PS4?
You'd think the thing was totally destroyed. But the internal solid-state components were fine.
It ran heavy gaming software flawlessly for years.
Exactly. The ugly, abused console survived.
But then contrast that with the second anecdote.
The camera.
Yes, the classic 35mm camera from a flea market. It's in mint condition. Not a single scratch on the lens. The casing is pristine.
It looks perfect.
It looks brand new. The buyer takes it home, loads the film, snaps exactly one photograph, and the entire internal mechanical shutter system just shatters.
It perfectly illustrates why visual inspection is often a terrible proxy for internal health.
Right.
The visually perfect antique camera had fragile, complex mechanical gears that had likely dried out or become brittle over decades of sitting on a shelf.
And they just failed the moment actual stress was applied.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You cannot predict hardware failure based solely on the exterior.
Which means you need a safety net. If visual inspection is useless, your entire purchase hinges on what happens after the device fails.
Right.
So let's break down the mechanics of the warranties offered in the refurbished market versus the protections in the used market.
Well, in the established refurbished market, the safety net is structural.
How so?
If you use a massive aggregation platform like Backmarket, which hosts various certified refurbishers, you're protected by the platform's infrastructure.
Okay.
Backmarket automatically mandates a 12-month warranty on all sales, with options to extend it for a fee.
But the crucial distinction here is who actually honors that warranty. Because if I buy a refurbished Dell laptop through Backmarket and the motherboard fails on month 6, I do not call Dell.
No, Dell will not help you. The original manufacturer's warranty is long gone. The warranty is provided by Backmarket's ecosystem.
Ah.
They handle the return logistics, the repair, and the customer service. You are trusting the platform's infrastructure to make you whole, not the original creator of the device.
Okay, a 12-month platform warranty makes sense for refurbished gear. But what happens when you step out of that ecosystem and into the strictly used market?
That is a whole different ballgame.
Say you buy that cigarette-burned PlayStation on eBay or a used tablet on an app like Mercari. What is the safety net there?
In the used market, you don't get a warranty. You get quote-unquote buyer protection.
Which sounds great.
It sounds great, but the mechanics are vastly different. Platforms like eBay and Mercari, they use an escrow system.
Meaning they hold the money.
Exactly. When you hit purchase on Mercari, your money doesn't go directly to the seller right away. It goes into a holding account managed by Mercari.
Okay, makes sense so far.
The seller ships the item, and once it is delivered, you have a very strict window. Usually it's just 3 days.
3 days to do what?
To inspect the item, test it, and rate the transaction.
Wait, 72 hours? That is nothing.
It's nothing. And if you rate the seller, or if those 72 hours just expire, the funds are permanently released from escrow to the seller.
I really want to highlight the reality of what you just described, because here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Buyer protection makes it sound like you're safe, like you have this comprehensive shield.
But you really don't.
Right. Structurally, an escrow system flips the burden of proof entirely onto you, the buyer. You're telling me that I have exactly 72 hours to become a forensic tech analyst?
Pretty much.
I have to stress test the processor, monitor the battery drain over multiple cycles, check every single physical port, look for dead pixels on the display.
And if you miss something...
If I miss a degrading thermal paste issue, and on day 4 the laptop overheats and dies, my money is gone.
Your money is gone, and the platform considers the transaction successfully closed.
Wow. Are we really saving money if we have to act as our own private investigators to get a refund?
Probably not, and that's the hidden cost of the used market. The absolute cheapest electronics on these platforms are priced that way because the seller refuses to invest the time or money to properly test them.
So they pass that job on to you.
Right. And if a hidden fault manifests after your 72-hour window closes, that massive discount you thought you got evaporates because you now have to buy a second device to replace the broken one.
So understanding the aggressive limitations of buyer protection should completely dictate where you choose to shop.
Absolutely.
If we map out the marketplaces based on risk tolerance, where should someone go if they want maximum safety?
If your priority is eliminating risk, you start with the official manufacturer websites.
Like Apple, Nintendo, Dell.
Yes, Sonos too. They all maintain robust in-house refurbishment operations. They have access to proprietary diagnostic software and official replacement parts that third parties simply cannot get.
It's the absolute closest you can get to buying brand new.
Exactly, though the discounts will be of the smallest.
Okay, and moving one step down the risk ladder, you have the major retail platforms and aggregators. We discussed back market, but what about physical retailers? The guide mentions Micro Center and Best Buy.
The advantage of a place like Micro Center is the physical footprint.
Yeah.
You're dealing with highly skilled repair teams in store.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, if something goes wrong, you can walk in and speak to a technician face-to-face. With Best Buy, the key is looking specifically for the Geek Squad certified label.
Why does that specific label matter? Doesn't Best Buy sell plenty of refurbished items from third-party vendors on their website?
They do, and that's the trap. It matters because of standard operating procedures. When an item is Geek Squad certified, it means Best Buy's own employees, following Best Buy's specific corporate testing protocols, perform the refurbishment.
Oh, okay.
Athwal specifically warns against dealing with third-party sellers nested inside major retail websites.
Why is that?
When you buy from a third party on a major retailer site, the chain of accountability fractures. Navigating returns or getting support becomes a logistical nightmare because the major retailer will constantly redirect you to the third-party vendor.
So you want to keep the chain of command as short and internal as possible.
Exactly.
Now, if you are willing to accept the escrow risks and step into the used market for steeper discounts, you're looking at eBay and Mercari.
Or buy nothing groups, physical garage sales.
Right. But there is a massive warning light flashing over one specific platform, and that is Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, yeah. Facebook Marketplace operates on a completely different paradigm because it heavily encourages localized, in-person cash transactions.
Right. You negotiate the price digitally, but you physically meet the seller to exchange the item.
And the moment you hand over physical cash in a coffee shop parking lot, all buyer protections cease to exist.
There is no escrow.
No escrow.
There's no 72-hour window.
None. You are operating entirely on blind trust. If you take that phone home and it refuses to connect to a cellular network because the internal antenna is fried.
You have zero recourse.
Zero. There is no customer service department to mediate the dispute.
Which is why shopping on an official manufacturer's refurbished site is like walking into a brightly lit showroom.
Yeah.
While buying tech with cash on Facebook Marketplace is basically haggling in a dark alley.
That is perfectly said. This asymmetric information dynamic makes Facebook Marketplace a primary hunting ground for scammers. They know that once the cash changes hands, the transaction is irreversible.
Scammers thrive in person because they can use high-pressure tactics. But they're also highly active online, right? Manipulating the architecture of the listings themselves.
Oh, definitely. The most prevalent online trap is the fine print scam.
How does that work?
On platforms like eBay, a seller will upload high-quality photos of a seemingly perfect laptop and price it aggressively.
So it looks amazing.
It looks like a steal. But buried deep within a massive wall of text in the description, or tucked away in extra small font at the very bottom, they will insert the words, "for parts only," or broken logic board.
They are exploiting user interface behavior.
Precisely. They know we are conditioned to look at the glossy image, look at the incredibly low price, and immediately click buy now before someone else grabs the deal.
And because they technically disclose the flaw,
the platform's escrow system won't protect you. When you try to file a claim for receiving a broken item, eBay will just point to the fine print.
wow.
It reinforces Athwal's foundational rule for this entire ecosystem. If a price looks too good to be true, it almost certainly is.
So synthesizing all of this, navigating the secondhand tech market doesn't require you to be a hardware engineer.
No, not at all.
But it does require you to be highly analytical about risk. I mean, if you buy a used item directly from an individual, you might uncover an incredible deal.
Like the family mentioned in the research, who bought a used flat-screen TV that ran flawlessly for a decade.
10 solid years. That is a gold mine. But you have to accept that you are operating without a safety net to get that deal.
It is entirely about conscious trade-offs. The ultimate shortcut to safe savings is leaning heavily into certified refurbished tech from operations that do their testing and repairs in-house.
Right. You secure a discount, you acquire a warranty that protects you from hidden hardware degradation, and you actively participate in keeping functional electronics out of the e-waste stream.
You simply need to verify the seller's grading standards, understand exactly who is providing the warranty, and always read the fine print.
It's about buying the seller as much as you're buying the device.
It really is.
But, before we wrap up, there is a looming question that complicates this entire ecosystem. If we pull back and look at the trajectory of the industry.
Yeah, this is the really provocative part.
We discussed how software obsolescence eventually kills perfectly good hardware. But manufacturers are increasingly tightening their grip on their software ecosystems in other ways, too.
Right. They're implementing digital locks that reject perfectly functional replacement parts installed by independent repair shops.
Which begs the question, if that trend continues, are we accelerating toward a reality where independent refurbishing becomes functionally impossible?
It's a real fear. Will manufacturers eventually engineer an ecosystem so locked down that they completely eliminate the secondhand market?
Forcing everyone to buy new, regardless of how capable a third-party technician is at repairing the hardware.
Right, a completely closed loop.
Or the manufacturer dictates the entire lifespan of the device, and the secondary market ceases to exist.
It's definitely something to think about.
That is a heavy concept to analyze the next time you find yourself scrolling through deals for a discounted laptop. So use the frameworks we mapped out today, protect your wallet, and approach the secondhand market with your eyes wide open. We will catch you on the next deep dive.